Man, it's been a tough stretch for Drake recently. Losing the battle to Kendrick Lamar, and then now having multiple reference tracks leaked. I guess Kendrick was right about OVO having some snakes on the team, because otherwise, how are these leaks keep dropping? Like, how are they getting released? It could either be someone in the OVO camp or maybe an engineer or producer that worked with Drake in the past. So Mob Ties and Ratchet Happy Birthday have both leaked online. It turns out Vori, who worked on Donda with Kanye West, is an artist in his own right, made the original track for Mob Ties. And a leak for Party Next Door, Ratchet Happy Birthday reference track leaked as well, which is, I would say that the party reference is pretty much like verbatim. It's pretty much the song that we got from Drake. Vori's record with Mob Ties, the reference track is kind of like similar flows. Some of the words are the same, but then Drake kind of took it, filled in the blanks, made it his own. I'd say it's about 50, maybe 60% still Vori's record. You know what I mean? So, I'm not gonna play the lead tracks. They're easy to find if you're trying to hear them. And for all the anti-Drake folks out there, going in on Drake right now, I want to talk to y'all about a couple things, right? The difference between collaboration, reference tracks, and ghostwriting, right? Because there is a difference between the three, and I think that's kind of getting confused and lost in translation. Collaborating with writers and artists is usually like a back and forth team effort, piecing together the song collectively, whether physically in the studio or remotely, right? Think of like a band working together, they're jamming out, they're coming up with ideas, and then slowly that builds the record. Now, a reference track, these are songs done by an artist or songwriter with sometimes unfinished or rough versions of ideas for songs for either themselves or to send to other artists or to give to other artists, right? Sometimes they just have like a mumbled flow and some ideas for melody and a couple lines here and there, and sometimes they're fully written and produced. Now, ghostwriting is something completely different, right? A ghostwriter would be someone who literally writes all the lyrics, right? Or at least majority of the lyrics, and they're not credited on the song, right? When you look up the song credits, whether on Spotify or wherever else you're looking, if you don't see their name there and they actually wrote the record, that would mean they are a ghostwriter. That's what the term ghostwriter means. Basically, for whatever reason, that artist's input on the record is meant to be a secret, right? Or they have some agreement to where they just receive a bag of money and they don't get royalties, for example, or maybe they get royalties behind the scenes, but it's not something that's publicized, right? They have ghost producers, same type of scenario. Dr. Dre's had ghost producers. Like, a lot of big artists actually a lot of big producers actually have ghost producers who kind of work under them and sometimes make the whole beat, and the bigger producer will get to have it under his production credits with his name, even though this other producer is actually the one that made the beat. Maybe the bigger producer is just the one that worked with the actual artist and put the song together. Now, the reason why I have to show you guys like the difference between a reference track, collaboration, and a ghostwritten track, right, is because a reference track and collaborative records, that's very like common in music, right? Especially in like pop music, popular music, a lot of hit records. You're not gonna see, very seldom are you gonna see one name. You're gonna see the producer, so that's gonna be the artist and the producer. That's at least two. A lot of times now, produced records have like five producers on one track, right? So you might have Boy Wonder, but then you also might have 40 or this or that other person, right? So they're also credited as songwriters. So when you look up the song credits, right, you'll see not only, in this case, Aubrey Drake Graham, right, Drake's name, you'll see Boy Wonder's government name, his real name, right, if he produced the record. And then you'll see whatever other producer's name as well. And then you might see multiple other names, and you're wondering to yourself, who are these people, right? These are people who have collaborated either on the music side of things, on the production side of things, or they helped to write the record. Now, that could either be in a collaboration effort, they're all in the studio working on the song together, right? Or it could be a reference track, right? Which most big artists, they'll still credit the writer who created the reference track. So you'll see their name too. So in these instances where we have Ratchet Happy Birthday and Mob Ties, I looked up the credits and you can see Vori's name is there under Mob Ties. It's credited, and also Ratchet Happy Birthday, Party Next Door is credited as a writer. So that right there shows you they're not ghostwriters, right? Vori is not a ghostwriter for Drake. Party Next Door is not a ghostwriter for Drake, as far as we know, at least with these two records here. These are either reference tracks or collaborative records. Now, this isn't the first time we've heard this from Drake. We've heard reference tracks made by Quentin Miller in the past, given to Drake for songs like 10 Bands and Know Yourself. To me, like, it would be a lot worse if Drake, one, didn't credit these artists, and two, if every single lyric was used, right? Like, I know Ratchet Happy Birthday is kind of pretty much written by Party Next Door, but that's not really like a rap record, right? Like, I'm not mad at Drake for using writers for the poppy songs or the R&B songs. Like, I kind of expect that. That's how the game goes, right? But if it was for like the actual lyrical records, then I think that would be the issue. That's not the case. From what I'm seeing, though, I've yet to see, like, he's had reference tracks for the bangers and stuff like that, but we've never seen like a reference track for like Lord Knows or something like that. And more often than not with the references, a lot of it will be the flows and the pockets, but then Drake will insert like his own lyrics and his own point of view into it. I haven't really seen one, at least I haven't seen a rap record where it was like word for word reference track that Drake just took. Now, all that being said, does this mean Drake isn't a great artist? No, it doesn't mean that. 98% of artists use reference tracks. That is the game. When you're playing at this high level, super commercial music, super successful music, that's the game. Reference tracks. Majority of your favorite artists out there probably use a reference track. That's just the way it is. Unfortunately, the cat's out the bag. It's if you think about it, like, if that means Drake isn't a great artist for using reference tracks, right, then that means that Beyonce is not a great artist. That means Michael Jackson is not a great artist, right? Like, Kanye West is not a great artist, and I'm sure there's a lot of rappers that we haven't heard their reference tracks out there that are using them. Like, that's just the game. The top songwriters, the top producers, they make references and they send them out to a bunch of big artists, and then they get picked, and then that's how it goes. It's a business, right? But I will say this, on a personal note, though, with this whole writing and references and ghostwriters thing, I remember when I first heard Kanye West didn't write all his raps, right? I know, like, now in retrospect, it looks naive, it sounds naive, but back then, I really believed that one man wrote all of College Dropout, made all the beats himself, did everything himself, and just crafted this like genius record, right? Now you find out that Rhymefest wrote a lot of at least half of Through the Wire, and also wrote a lot on College Dropout and other records for Kanye West. And you hear about the Sci-Highs and Big Sean and Pusha T writing for Kanye and all these people, right? Vori as well. And that was definitely like a Santa Claus moment for me. It doesn't take away from the fact that those are still great songs and great albums, and Kanye West is still a great artist, Drake is still a great artist, but it does take away that, like, that alien factor. Like, I used to look at these people like they're aliens. Like, how are they so talented? You know what I mean? Like, myself, when I was younger, I rapped a lot. Like, I make beats too. So I would make all the beats, do all the production, write all the lyrics myself, do everything myself, thinking like, this is what Kanye does. I got to do this. This is how I have to do it to really be a great artist, right? Like, and then you find out, like, that's not actually how it goes. It's actually a group effort. These guys have multiple artists and multiple writers and multiple producers all working together to make this great music. It also reminds me of the Andre 3000 verse, right? When he says, after 20 years in, I'm so naive, I was under the impression that everyone wrote their own verses. It's coming back different, and yeah, that shit hurts me. I'm humming and whistling to those that not deserving. I've stumbled and lived every word. Was I working just way too hard? So he's questioning, was I just working too hard? You know what I'm saying? I'm seeing that I was under the impression that everybody wrote their own verses. It's coming back different, right? So he's finding out that the same way like Young Me was finding out that, you know, it's not the case. Everybody's not writing all their verses. Everyone's not writing all their hooks, right? There's the part of making a great song and making a great hit, and then there's a part of like rap integrity of being a true MC, true lyricist, right? And I think that's the balance, and that's like the discussion we're having now with Drake. The Drake piece of it all is like, you know, Drake can write, right? He's written for others like Kanye, Alicia Keys, and Beyonce. You know, he's a phenomenal writer, but if he also gets assistance with his pen, it doesn't mean he's not great. It just means he's not the alien we thought that he was, right? Like we all thought in amazement, like Drake is this alien. He just makes hits in his sleep. And I think we're now just seeing like actual proof that that's not the case, right? Like Drake is human just like the rest of us. Yes, he can write amazing bars and lyrics himself. He can write hits, but also for him to be able to put out the volume of music he does and the amount of hits constantly and consistently every year, it just shows that that's not something that's possible for one person to do, right? One person is not sitting in the studio making hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. It's just not possible. And it shows that, right? Drake is our hit maker in our culture, right? And it shows that he uses a team to do this shit. He uses a team of producers and he uses a team of writers, right? We know that Lil Yachty did the Jumbo Shit Poppin' reference. Like a lot of For All the Dogs was Lil Yachty's collaborative efforts and reference tracks or whatever. You know, Lil Yachty worked close with him on that album. And I'm sure Drake helped Lil Yachty on his project as well. But, you know, the thought of, you know, Drake being this hit-making, hook-writing machine is just who can also rap at a high level, you know. It's the case, but it's not fully the case. Like, you know, it's a little bit of both, right? Like he can do it, but that volume, it's just not possible, right? It's just not possible to put out that many hits on your own, locked in the studio, solo dolo by yourself. You know, the one I think out of all the references so far that I've heard, I think from Drake is the one that really messed me up was Know Yourself, right? Because, you know, Mob Ties a little bit too, because that was one of my favorite records from that album. But Know Yourself mostly because I'm from Toronto, right? And Know Yourself was like our national anthem damn near. So, you know, running through the six with my woes, you know, they call Toronto the Six. But then you find out that Quentin Miller actually wrote it, and it's actually a track that is referencing Atlanta, you know, Zone 6 Atlanta, right? So it's like, it's kind of messed up, but you know, it is what it is. It's still a great record. Still a banger. But man, I wish I didn't know that. I'm not gonna lie. I wish I didn't know that. So, you know, Drake is getting a lot of hate right now, but we have to remember, like, he's not the only one, right? I think on one hand, we kind of have to give like hip hop artists a break, right? Because, you know, we want the highest level production, the highest level rapping, the highest level music that we could possibly get, visuals, everything. But, you know, that takes multiple talents and brain power, right? Like, you know, if we took away references and co-writers, then My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy wouldn't exist. You know what I mean? One of the greatest albums of all time. You know, in rock bands and rock music and pop music and other forms of other genres, you know, they don't really get the harsh critique that rappers get, where it's like you have to write every single thing yourself, right? And it's like people go, well, in the 90s they did it, but in the 90s, really, most rap records were really, you know, R&B singer on the hook, MC fill in the verses, right? Or the hook will be scratched. You know what I mean? DJ Premier will scratch the whole hook. So it's not even a lot of like real high level hook writing. Not all of them, obviously. There's obviously the artists that could do both, but at the level of the way the game is now and the output that we have now, to put out Miseducation of Lauryn Hill now and just have one album and that's it is, you know, it's incredibly difficult in today's landscape. You know what I mean? Because nowadays, with all the output in the world, the way it's working, the amount of music that's coming out, you could put out an amazing album, it's not even heard. So it's like you have to consistently be putting out music. And in order to do that, for some people, you know, you got to have some help. So, you know, if all these other genres could do the same thing, You know, we're not getting that Led Zeppelin for having a song written by someone else or something like that, right? You know, but then there's on the flip side, I do also see it from the MC side, where it's like on an MC level, you know, I don't want to hear anybody talking about being the best MC if they're not writing everything, if their pen game is not responsible for all their records, right? You know, if you're sharing bars like the bottom bunk of a 2-man cell, you know what I mean? Like, you know, now I give Drake grace, because reference tracks are very common in pop commercial music world and all that stuff. But if we ever hear that someone helped him write, you know, Lord Knows, like I said earlier, or the timestamp records are Over My Dead Body, you know, then it's gonna be like, damn, okay, we really have to look at where we rank Drake in this whole thing, and you know, maybe he is a little bit overrated, right? Like, but until that happens, I'm not gonna hold it against him too crazy. You know, I kind of expected it, to be honest. You know, it's for someone to be able to be such a good rapper and then also be able to touch multiple genres, Afro beats, pop, dance music, all these things. I'm assuming that there's got to be some collaborators and other people involved to be able to touch all those different boxes. For now, it's unfortunately just the way mainstream music is. You know, it's a machine, and you know, with streaming and everything, it's all about the numbers. It's all about the amount of tracks. It's, you know, we're rarely seeing 10-track, 14-track albums. You know, shout out to Vince Staples for having an album that's about 35 minutes long. That's incredible. But you know, it's a rarity in today's game, especially on the mainstream level, right? So, you know, it's a machine, and just wait until they start exposing the people using AI on the reference tracks.